Anyone lurking I can scare with my voice? Oh, I was gonna have some music on from Airport CEO, but then I thought I'll have to mute it anyway if I'm reading the chapter, so I figured I'd just sit in silence for a few seconds. That did scare me. Oh, Kelpie, hello. I'm sorry. Oh, bless you. Oh, it's so sweet that you're here from the start though. Were you aware that we were reading a chapter today, or did you just already hang out there? But I appreciate it. I'm sorry I scared you. Oh, I feel bad now. Maybe in future I should just have the game that I'm gonna play with the music in the background because I don't want to give people heart attacks. Well, especially not you of all people as well. That was probably a bad joke to make. I'm sorry. um. Anyway, we'll set up the stream raiders real quick. God, I feel bad now. I shouldn't have said that. I'm sorry. I didn't really get a chance to check which path would be best here. I am thinking maybe. Wait, can I? I don't know if I can go like that. I'm here to lurk for the chapter. I appreciate the lurk, Oscar. Thank you. You know what? Well, I mean, we've got 2, 3. We'll go here. Anyone wants to jump in? We'll wait a few minutes to see if people want to drop in. I've already had 16 whole dropped frames out of 23,000, so not too bad. I'm gonna place the tank down. The fact that I know there's supposed to be slimes, but they always look like this looks like the end of a spine for me. I feel like. Anyway, I don't know how many people are gonna pop in. I was hoping to get the chapter done quickly because I normally so I've started cutting out the bits with the chapter, and well, most of the time I take 15 to 20 minutes to actually get around to starting it. Hey, Wolf Dog, how are you doing? With the little Pikachu. That's adorable. But thank you for jumping into the stream. Hoodie Heartless, hello. I do recognize your name. Hello, thank you for popping in. And Era Gaming as well, of course. I appreciate you guys all being here. You know, I was editing because we completed the community challenge for the chapters yesterday, right? So I was editing last night. And this is so sad. I actually, even though I wrote it myself, got really invested into reading my own book that I ended up going to bed late because I was just like, I need to know what happens next. Because the thing is, I last read this, you know, so long ago. Although I can vaguely remember what happened, I don't remember exactly. And I was just lying there in bed thinking, I'm so sad. I know I wrote this book, you know? I'm just happy to stop by and say hi and see you. How are you doing? I'm doing good, thank you. I'm doing alright. I just got an email actually that I'm supposed to go into the office on Monday to start my new job. So I'm gonna be picking up stuff there. So I'm quite excited for that. I took an afternoon nap that I never do, and I don't know what's going on right now. I'm from Calpe's stream. I thought it was. I thought it was, but I wasn't 100% sure. Did you have a nice afternoon nap though? Did you manage to sleep? I sometimes feel like I should take an afternoon nap, but the thing is, when I have an afternoon nap, I can't get back to sleep at night. So, I mean, I took plenty of naps when I was at uni, to be fair, and I still managed to sleep at night time. So it's not always a problem. It's so sweet of you guys to jump in there. Yeah. So the way I'm starting off today's stream is we do community challenges for me to read out chapters from a book that I wrote about 2 years ago, which is why I'm going through and editing it now because you know over time, even if I haven't really been writing, you still improve your skills. So I'm actually quite excited. I can't remember if this was the okay. It's the next one, I think. Okay, so this one is the start of kind of having an insight into Sky's life. The next one then starts to get exciting. Basically, to summarize what's happened so far, Sky so I don't know who has been on Wattpad, but Wattpad has this trope where you have bad boys and good girls. I reversed that, so it's a delinquent rich girl with a goody two shoes guy, and they've basically met and they just don't get on. That's how far we've got at the moment, really. You wake up at 5 a.m. with a horrible tummy ache and vomiting. Oh gosh. Oh yeah, what kind of book is it? If anyone does want to read it or read along, we're on chapter 7 today. I didn't actually put that in the title, I probably should have done, but it's book 1 there. It's basically a teen fiction romance. Good morning, Squishy. I hope your stomach ache gets better though. I can't remember what Calpy calls you. Is it Hoodie or Heartless? Or is it Hoodie Heartless? Both of them. Yeah, Calpy's here as well. It's called the Low Class Prince Charming because he's, like I said, she's a rich delinquent. He's a goody two shoes, but he's also quite poor. So playing on a bunch of tropes. And say I'm doing too hot right now. Oh no. Do you think it's something you've eaten or just like a bug that's going around? I hope it's nothing too bad. I can't remember I think I said this yesterday or a couple of days ago, but I can't remember the last time I threw up. The thing is with me, I don't get ill very often, but when I get ill, I get really quite ill. Which I don't know if that's better, because I remember in school, I used to have a friend, and she was ill all the time. But, like, to be fair, her mum would let her off school with a cold, so must be something you ate. Oh, that's the worst kind. Same. Yeah, I remember one specific incident with me and my sister. So we must have like eaten the same thing or caught the same bug, but we fell ill at the exact same time. She was better after a week, and I was still there throwing up and, you know, bathroom trips for 2 weeks. So a whole extra week on top of what she had, and you know, I was jealous of her because I wanted to be better. And I remember this one time as well. I must have been about 10, where I was throwing up anything, and I actually had to have an extra week off school because I just had no energy. Oh, you have a fever. Oh gosh. COVID doesn't cause sickness, right? I know, because I think it causes a fever, kind of like the flu, right? Gosh, you don't sound hot at all. Well, I mean, temperature-wise you sound hot, but you don't sound very well. You did say you had a nap. I always feel like when I sleep a lot, it seems to make me feel better. So hopefully if you rest a little bit, it'll go better. No, I don't have a cough or flu. Well, that's good at least. I'm a bit nervous going into the office on Monday. Even though they said it's COVID safe, it's like... Well, because I went to the doctor, the optician, and the dentist on Wednesday. Like, I try and leave the house as little as possible. So I combine like all of those trips into one day. So it's a bit scary having to leave the house to go to a workplace. They all work from home. I'm just going in to meet everyone and like pick up stuff, but it's still very, very nerve-wracking. I'm very nervous about it all. All right. I think, how long have we been here? 10 minutes. I think if anyone wants to come for the chapter, they probably would have turned up by now. So the way I do chapter readings is I ignore chat while I read it, just to, you know, keep it kind of consistent. This one's actually a longer chapter. It's almost 2,400 words. I tend to aim for about 2,000 per chapter. Some of them have been a bit shorter. I think this has been the longest one so far. I basically ignore chat, and then if people have something to say, I'll go back and read it afterwards. And that's basically the way I do it. It just keeps the flow going a bit better than if I were to stop every, you know, 2 minutes or something to read chat. And once we've done that, we can go into yeah, ignore us. Wow. I read the messages afterwards, okay? Also, I just realized one thing I need to do is I need to there's my phone, because I know when it lights up I'm gonna be like, oh, has my parcel arrived? For those of you who don't know, the new story of Seasons is out today. I'm so excited. I'm hoping to stream it later. Me and Enchal were set up my computer for a good hour or two last night trying to set it up, so hopefully I can get it set up today. That's how Enchal likes it. I'm here to listen but can't chat much for a while. It's all good. I appreciate you being here, Enchal. Hopefully the chapter will be good. I am so excited to get into the next few chapters. They're very, very energetic. I remember distinctly, so this is chapter 7. Chapters 8 and 9 are a combined about 3,000, 4,000 words. I wrote it within 2 or 3 hours. It just came so naturally. And reading back on it now, it really, like, at least for me, I was like, oh my god, this is so exciting. And I wrote the darn thing, so, you know. I was just sat there thinking, this is so sad. I was actually debating, because it was like 10 p.m. and I was like, do I keep going or not? And I was like, no, I gotta go to bed. The book will still be there tomorrow. It's so sad because I wrote it myself. But the thing is, it was 2 years ago, so although I know like where the story's going, I can't remember it chapter by chapter, you know what I mean? So anyway, thank you guys for being here. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start the chapter now. So I have this little thing popping up on the screen. You should see it. Wrong side. This side. So what I do is I cover, again, if anyone does want to read along, it's chapter 7 of Link 1 in chat at the moment. And did I say it's chapter 7? I think I did. I'm being very forgetful. I do apologize. Anyway, hey, Eric with the French fries. I need to do that poll over the weekend. You're on rank 102. God, you've got almost 1,000. I just realized if I reset the leaderboard, it's gonna reset it to out of 0 as well, isn't it? Anyway, I put the reading now on the screen. So let me have a quick drink and we will start. Okay. So at the end of last chapter, Sky brought Mason to school. Mason took a test to see if he was at the right kind of stage to enter the school, if he knew everything he needed to. Oh, let me just check one last time. Wait, it's not been reset yet. No, it hasn't. I keep meaning to poll to ask what people want, and I haven't got around to it yet. Anyway, for now, for the next, I think 10 minutes or so, I'll probably be ignoring chat. So if you guys want to, you know, make comments on something that's happened, I will read it afterwards. But during the whole thing, I won't be. There's a rumor great start. There's a rumor floating around that a certain new transfer student got top marks on his entrance exam, Sky said airily as she passed by Mason. Mason jumped in surprise at her sudden presence, jumping uncomfortably close to the road they were walking along. Due to his shorter stature, he had to leave earlier than her, and wasn't anticipating any words from her when he knew, undoubtedly, that she would manage to catch and then overtake him. However, despite speaking words, she didn't slow down beside him to wait for a reply, and so that was all which was said between them on the walk to school that morning. A few days had passed since he'd taken the test, and he'd received a call last night that he'd been accepted and that the paperwork for his transfer was finally done, so he was finally able to attend school at last. It was rather a relief after the lack of activity the last few days. He was itching to do something again. Once Mason reached the school, he walked straight to reception again, where they directed him to the head of the school's office. The school head had already been waiting for him, and Mason was able to enter the office without having to wait. He waited for the headmaster to sit first, after closing the door behind him before he sat down himself. So first of all, I want to say congratulations on passing the test. The headmaster smiled at him, and Mason smiled in return. Upon some consideration, we've decided to put you in the same tutor group as Sky Simmons since you're living with her, and it's not always nice to know someone when you enter a new school. Actually, Mason started awkwardly, momentarily interrupting. Would it be all right if I went to any other class? The headmaster blinked at him. Part of our decision was based on the conversation we had with her father, James Simmons, who pretty much requested that you two should be put in the same class. However, if it's not something you want, I can pass it on and try to change his mind. No, it's okay, Mason relented. James had probably decided it would be easier for him to get to know her and work on her personality this way, but he couldn't help but wish he hadn't made that phone call. Mason smiled at the headmaster when he continued looking at him with a worried and concerned gaze. If you're sure, the headmaster said then, I will take you to your class and hopefully you will be able to settle in soon. They made small talk as the headmaster led him to his tutor group room, and just like he'd promised, Sky was sat in the class looking uninterested as usual, but with the slight difference of having a small girl at her side trying to engage her in conversation. As the headmaster passed him over to the teacher of the group, he asked if there was anyone who would be in any of his classes that day. Luckily, or unluckily for him, there was someone who shared the first class with him. It looked like he might have to find the others by himself, though. As Mason went to sit next to the guy who had offered to show him the location of his first class, he could feel Sky's eyes digging into the back of his head. Apparently, he wasn't the only one to notice. After the introductions between the two, the guy called Connor continued the conversation by asking him a question. Do you know Sky? Mason wasn't sure how to answer. Kind of, he replied vaguely. Not well. Connor chuckled nervously. As long as you haven't done anything to upset her already, I wouldn't have wanted myself to be dragged down with you. No problems between us, don't worry, he reassured him. Good. He nodded happily, and with that, attention was called for the start of the first class of the day. The day ended up going quite well for Mason, who didn't struggle finding any classes after the first and was on time for all of them. Before long, the last lesson of the day rolled around for both of the teenagers. And now a piece of news which I dare say will shock us all, were the first words Mrs. Barber spoke after finishing registration. She bent down to retrieve a stack of papers from inside her desk as she spoke her next words. I'm rather delighted to say that everyone passed the tested homework. In fact, she paused a moment here for effect as she looked at everyone over her glasses, like so. No one got below 50%. Woo! One of the students in the back shouted after a moment and started clapping, leading everyone else to join in, albeit a slow clap from most people in surprise. No one dared look at her, but everyone was thinking the same thing. How had Sky managed to pass? All except one, that is. Well done, Sky! Lily exclaimed happily from beside her. Much like the rest of the class, Sky couldn't quite believe it, so for a few moments she stared blankly at Lily's outstretched fist before realizing she should punch it, and so she did, lightly. How did you do it? Lily asked then. Chatter ran through the class, which the teacher allowed while she was walking around handing out the completed homework sheets. I asked someone for some help, Sky said, furrowing her eyebrows together. It was actually quite a nice feeling doing something well. Lily gasped as she stared at Sky. You didn't force someone to do it for you, did you? Her voice was barely above a whisper, but Sky caught every word. She gave Lily a deadpan stare. You know I wouldn't do something like that. Lily giggled. I know. Sky let out a light smile at her friend's silliness, and then grinned properly as she felt the great sense of accomplishment wash over her. Her good mood didn't go unnoticed by anyone, and even the teacher gave her a small smile as she handed her back her paper. For the whole hour, Sky was in a great mood, and it was distinctly noticeable even in the atmosphere of the class, which seemed to have relaxed along with Sky's mood. The last lesson of the day ended surprisingly quickly, and even on the walk back to her house, Sky was in a relatively good mood. This time, when she happened to see Mason during the walk, she stayed by his side and they walked together. It didn't even escape Mason that she had a bounce in her step and a smile on her face. Mason shot her a weirded out look, but decided to just go with it and said nothing, just in case he somehow once again ruined whatever seemingly good situation Sky had created here. Say, Mason, is it always such an amazing feeling getting such a good grade? She asked him out of nowhere. Mason shot her an amused look this time. Always, he said with honesty. As they reached the gates of her house, she stopped and turned to him with a smile still on her face. Maybe we could study together more in future. At first the idea made him nervous, but then he realized this was a large step forward, so he nodded. Sure, but I'm only going to help so much that it doesn't impact my own grades. Bear that in mind. Sky nodded, but didn't say anything. With the smile no longer on her face, but still in her eyes, she turned to walk towards the house, but a sight made her stop short in her tracks and lose trace of any trace of her happiness. Surprised and then confused, he looked at her and then towards the house, where a lavish-looking car was parked in front of the steps, and at the top of the steps an equally lavishly dressed woman was stood, and just in that moment she turned to look at the duo passing through the gate. He wasn't entirely sure what was going on, but Sky's whisper of "Mother" from beside him alone made chills go down his spine. It was almost as if Sky's feelings became his own as he once again followed her stare. So, Mason, was it? Sky and Mason were currently seated on a sofa directly opposite Sky's mother and were separated from her by a coffee table in the middle of the room. Mason nodded in response to her question, and she smiled at him. She then extended her hand towards him. I'm Heather Simmons, she told him as they shook hands. It's nice to meet you. I heard you got accepted into the school. Mason nodded as they both retracted their hands and sat further back on their respective sofas. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for letting me stay here and giving me this opportunity. Heather waved her hand dismissively. No need for thanks. I heard my husband made you a proposition so that you could also help us, Heather said, shooting a vague glance at her daughter, who wasn't paying any attention to the conversation at all. Heather continued, And much like my husband, I am very grateful to you for giving it a try. Have you made any progress? Despite the vagueness of the subject, Mason still felt uncomfortable talking about Sky's progress in front of her, even if she couldn't at all know what they were talking about. That is, if she was even listening. As he shot a glance over at her, it looked like paying attention was the last thing she was planning to do. Not yet, he answered her. I am still trying to figure out what certain aspects I need to work on, but soon. I see. I look forward to seeing your progress, Heather said. She then turned to look at Sky. Sky. She called for her attention, and Sky finally looked up at her mother. Mason relaxed a little, as he was glad the attention had finally left him, and that she was finally talking a bit to her daughter. However, Heather's next words surprised him a little bit. Have you been helping Mason settling in? Nice to see you too, Mother, Sky responded bitterly, looking at her mother unenthusiastically. When she clearly wasn't going to get a greeting in return, Sky responded with a sigh. I've been trying my best, she muttered. Heather turned back to Mason to confirm her story. Has she? Mason was almost at a loss for words at how little the mother regarded her daughter, the latter of which was now staring off into the distance once more. She seemed to be more interested in his deeds than Sky's. Mason nodded, imagining Sky was already upset enough as it was, and not wanting to cause her any more grief. How pleasantly surprising, Heather mused slightly before she stood up. I thank you for your honesty and hard work, Mason. I hope you enjoy your stay here. Mason rushed to stand up too as he thanked the lady of the house for her hospitality. Heather smiled at him one last time before she started making her way towards the door. Come with me, Sky, she said as she walked past the sofa. Without a sound, Sky also stood up and followed along behind her mother, leaving Mason standing alone in the room as they left. Once Heather and Sky reached the front door, through which the moisture in the air could be felt as the wind brought in the scent of rain, Heather turned to her daughter one last time. Put your hand out, Heather commanded. With no will to fight back, Sky just did as she was told. Heather pressed a wad of money into her outstretched hand. Take this money so you can entertain yourself until Christmas, Heather explained as they both looked at the money in Sky's outstretched hands. Anything you do, make sure you take Mason along with you so he's not alone and has something to do. Sky scoffed at those words as she dropped her arm back down to her side. Of course, she said, not a hint of sincerity in her voice. Whether Heather picked up on it or not, Sky didn't know, but Heather nodded her head, clearly happy with the outcome. Without another word, she turned and exited the building, shielded from the rain outside by an umbrella held by the butler Michael. As Mason watched from the door of the room they had been sitting in before, it didn't surprise him that Sky never said much in farewell if her mother did the same thing. Without seeing the car off, Mason witnessed Sky walking into a side room and returning with a very unique-looking umbrella. Brushing off anyone who wanted to talk her out of going outside into the rain, she just held up her hand to stop them from talking. As soon as she'd exited the building, a sense of ease seemed to return to the staff, who finally closed the front door to keep the heat in without locking it, to allow Sky to get back in whenever she wanted. Deciding the situation was now over, Mason made his way back to his room and began gathering some of his study materials together. Having placed them on his bed and about ready to head to the desk outside once again, he took a moment to open his window to listen to the pounding of the rain and take in its scent. He was also curious if he could see Sky, if she'd stayed in the garden. There she was, down by the fountain, pacing back and forth. He watched her for a few minutes, wondering what was going through her head and whether he should go down and talk to her. He decided against it when she suddenly dropped the umbrella and kicked it a few meters away before kicking her foot against the fountain a few times. Realizing that she probably didn't want anyone to see her like this, he closed his window, grabbed his stuff, and made his way to the desk in the hallway. And that is finished. Let's go. Hey, Cress, cool how you placed the books. I don't have so many books. This isn't my picture, Napu, but thank you. I did find it online. I can't remember where I found it, but yes, this isn't my picture. I found it online. But hey, how are you doing? And Big Guy, hello. Thank you guys for jumping in. Squishy saying 9 because the bot let you win? I have confusion. You could cut out the middle and make the webcam the background. Oh. I like that idea. Let me write that down. Squishy, you're so artistic. Cut out, so book in. I cut out middle. And make a background. Thank you. I am horrible at making art, but fantastic at bashing it. Oh, that idea is amazing. I like that a lot.